Hello and welcome to Where's Your Brain? Today we have Tanya Kalinoska. She's a neuroscientist, she's a psychologist, and she deals with trauma. So what does that have to do with? What is trauma? It's basically stuff that messes you up and affects you for the rest of your life. Well, so that's what we're going to figure out today, is how all of this kind of is going to support you to essentially get over your shit. All right, and help you to be a better version of who you are. Now, we all know about colored brain, right? Now, colored brain is the foundational genetic way that your brain processes information. This is called the brain's genetic ambiguity relief process, which is, well, essentially how you get clarity. Okay, and we know that you can't change your genetic ambiguity relief process because it's, well, genetic. Okay, so that means that how you get clarity affects a lot of things. But does it affect trauma? Does it affect the way that you interpret things that affect you emotionally, which is not part of colored brain, for the rest of your life, or at least potentially until something else changes it back? Okay, so Tanya, tell us a little bit about your work.
So I'm a psychologist and neuroscientist, and I work with trauma and how it affects those patterns that we constantly repeat, and how it affects our authenticity and ability to express ourselves truly and our uninhibited self. You know. So what you said, that there is genetic component to things, but also I think that our early upbringing is super important, and it affects how our life unfolds further, how we interpret situations further, how which patterns we repeat, etc., etc.
Okay, and well, you know how sometimes, you keep doing the same stuff over and over again. You say, oh my gosh, why do I do that? Or you've got these habits that you don't really like about yourself. Well, that basically means that you're essentially being inauthentic. Why? Well, it's not on purpose, because, you want to not do it, okay? But you still end up doing it. So what would be some of the reasons behind this, Tanya?
It depends on the kind of trauma that the person has received in the early childhood. So, for example, there could be an easy triggering event, like someone didn't reply to you, or like your partner didn't respond in the way you wanted. And depends on the kind of trauma that got developed, your response would be in line with that kind of pattern of thinking. So, for example, if you have abandonment wound, you would be like, oh, he's gonna leave me, and that's the first sign that he's gonna leave me, that he didn't reply. Or if you have a rejection wound, you would be like, oh, I'm not good enough, and that person doesn't want to be around me. Or if you have a mistrust wound, you'd be like, oh, no one can be trusted. I cannot trust humans anymore. I should just rely on myself. So.
Or dogs.
Yeah, those are always with you. True. So it depends, it depends on the kind of trauma you get, and that forms your thought processes, that forms the limiting beliefs that you constantly tell to yourself, and and that keeps repeating in many, and that's why people say it's like, oh, I'm being cursed, or oh, it's like a magic spell on me, it keeps happening, no matter what I do, and it is because it was programmed at an early childhood. Usually people think that for trauma is like a very extreme event, but it is not so. And for us to have trauma, we do not need a completely huge thing happen to us, like war, or a very, very severe abuse. It could be something as simple as I had a client who was not taken care of properly when she was a couple of weeks old, and the only thing she could was roll away from the person who was hurting her at that moment, and we've seen that this pattern repeated after many years in her life, that whenever there is stress, she has to physically remove herself in any way from the...
Does she roll? Or
no, she doesn't roll anymore. Okay, you know what happens now? Now she just changes locations all the time, and anytime something happens, it's just like, oh, I'm ready to pack and go. This kind of stuff, So
that can be expensive.
Yeah, it gets really, we pay for our traumas. People say that therapy is expensive. I say we pay much more in ways which we don't even realize, for real. And talking about expensive, I come from Ukraine, and many kind of people kind of heard the phrase in Soviet Union there was like an authoritative parenting, and many parents told their kids stuff like, oh, all of this is mine, my house, you follow my rules until you're in my house, everything is mine. So like to keep the control or the power dynamic, parents used to do it a little bit like that, and the kid later developed the thing. For example, another lady, she had losses of money all the time and everywhere in every kind of way, and then
what happens when you play crypto.
Exactly, this way as well, yeah. And once we untangled it, we realized that this is what was happening, because the only thing she heard, that nothing is yours. So whenever someone comes and takes something from her, she's like, but nothing is really mine. And it's not something consciously that she would want to do, but like it's unconscious thought and a permission for people to take from her, because she she doesn't
so basically she created an environment where others would take advantage of her of this trauma that she had,
exactly.
Where they would take, and there would be little or no consequences.
Exactly, yes, exactly. And this is how it happens. So we pay for our traumas all the time in very expensive ways, and most of the times we are not even aware of this. And that's why it is so important to come back to your authenticity, your truth, without to take off those layers, to find out who you really are, what are your true real wishes. Because most of the wishes that we are, broadcasted, that we must have something at this age or something, they are not our wishes, and we just carry on with our programming that falls onto what we are being told by media or by, Instagram, that kind of stuff, and we follow other people's wishes. And that's why often people get the thing and they're like, oh, but I'm not so happy, I worked so much for it and I'm not really happy receiving that thing, because it wasn't initially the desire from
the soul. The thing is, that goes back to emotional drive though, right? See, now we know that colored brain doesn't change how you get clarity. So for example, if you have chaotic processing, okay, that means that when, that a trauma could be that you are in a situation where you have too much structure and you literally have to get away from it because your brain doesn't work well with structure. And so therefore, in some cases, when there's structure, people might actually run away, okay? If they're chaotic processing. Now, if you give a red brain, for example, somebody that needs structure for clarity, they're going to have a completely opposite effect. So they would not have a trauma, and from their perspective, that would be exactly what they need. Yeah. So by understanding a little bit about how you process information, it can also help you to understand why certain people have trauma with this and others do not. And when you get into emotional drives, now you're dealing with your motivators. Now those do change, right? So primary motivators, things that are affected by what you want, okay? And in some cases, we want, say, for example, recognition. Now, recognition can come in many ways, right? And the higher the levels of recognition, the more you want it. But it's also how your emotional drives are mixed. So, for example, if you have recognition and let's say you also have an emotional drive for control, okay, and security, you're going to get recognition by forcing people to do what you want, okay, and trying to, bullying in some cases even. On the other hand, if you have a lot of what we call love and belonging, where you care about people, and you also have high recognition, but you also you also have high level of achievement. You want to finish things. That means you're ambitious, but you do it with people and supporting people rather than getting them to do it. So how you deal with things is affected by the mix of your emotional drives.
Exactly, and I think that trauma adds additional layer that makes a lot of more confusion kind of to what
we're already so confused,
predisposed
right?
to, and then it's kind of fogs the way towards clarity and the path much more, than is. And I also was thinking about in my generation for Instagram, that for me it's an example of how our generation was, we were. Instagram allowed us to get the mirroring and the Instagram allowed us to get the mirroring that we didn't get as children, and that's why it is such an obsession of this age. We were not mirrored as kids, and we were not validated as children, and that's why we found a place to get that validation and mirroring of ourselves, and to see ourselves like our parents were supposed to see us, and how they were supposed to describe us to them, us to ourselves, so that we get an image of ourselves, and we get stuck at the developmental loop and we cannot kind of overcome it. So I see that in my generation, this has been a complete way to try to overcome this problem and pass on to the next developmental stage,
Well, I'm a little bit older than you. Not much, just a little bit. So, what happened is that Instagram is just a new version of what used to happen before. See, I am from the BFB era, before Facebook. All right? Now, before Facebook, you had, like your colleagues at work or your boss would say, hey, that was a good job, okay? And then somebody else would basically say, hey, did you, see what Tanya did? Okay, so that's a share, okay? And of course, the comments and everything is when people are sharing and telling about what you did and how you did it. And all of that is still validation. We've been getting validation from since humanity started. It's always been some level of validation that determines the direction. Because, okay, example, let's, do you play a musical instrument?
I used to, but now I stopped. So it was piano.
Piano, okay. I used to try to play violin. All right?
Piano, I couldn't sit still.
I wanted to play this piece by Beethoven, not a really crazy piece. It was Ode to Joy, so it's not so hard. But when I first started playing violin, I was trying to play it, and I just couldn't really do it, right? And it didn't sound right and everything. Then my teacher came over, and he got me to play Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Okay, and Twinkle, Little Star was a lot easier. And so I actually got good at playing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. So that in itself, that level of completion of success created a validation that I could do it.
Okay, yeah.
Right? And because that now I had a new level of validation. Before, when I wasn't any good, I just wanted to just give up. Okay? Because there was no point. I'm no good. Okay? And I couldn't figure it out. So I was ready to give up. But when I played Twinkle Little Star, that was my validation point. And from there, I was able to do variations of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Don't ask me to do it now. But and then I was able to do the Ode to Joy. Okay? But the thing is that our motivation to succeed comes from success.
Yes.
So
from having experience in our system embodied it.
And that success is the validation itself. So if we are going to lead people, for example, our job is to help them succeed at some level, right? So if we can help them, at least at a lower level, succeed and then build on that success, then we can help them to overcome their traumas, can't we?
Exactly. I think so, for sure.
Okay.
And I wanted to say that in general, I believe that after my practice and what I see in people, that the personality we develop largely is like an adaptation for what we have been through. And it is super important to come back to your roots. And another thing is that by overcoming traumatic events, we kind of change personality, and we are able to move forward where we couldn't, like you say, with the Ode to Joy, for example. Yeah. And so it's super important to work on yourself, and once you do it, you will develop another kind of personality, and that would create a personal reality for you, which is different from what you have been living. So you get that new embodiment and new experience that you didn't have before. And that's why it's super important.
So what you're saying is you can be a total bitch, okay? And then you can, once you kind of overcome this trauma, then you become less of a bitch, or you just stop being a bitch altogether?
I think being a bitch is just in general a reaction, a way of coping with something inside of you. It's like shadow. Most of the things that we didn't work on we, in any case, they live within us, so they are pushed into shadow, and they still come up. And that's how the world is so unsafe now. It's because a lot of people act out of their shadow. That's how we have conflicts, they have wars, we have all the problems that there are now, because you cannot cut some parts of yourselves until you, accept them fully, until you live through them fully and integrate them within you. If you don't, they'll still show up.
Well, so what you're saying, for example, let's say, there are certain people in this world at this moment that are interested in aggressively pursuing war in various areas of the world.
Right.
Okay. So what would you say would be some of the traumatic events that would cause someone to literally just want to blow shit up?
We can look at the story of Hitler, who was not accepted in the art school. It could start from this, it sounds very small, and that's how it is. And I'm sure it was not his first rejection. That's why he overreacted to this.
And he was short.
Sorry?
And he was short. Yes, and he was short.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so for example, small things like this, which are completely disconnected, caused the World War, completely not tied to it.
Okay, all right. And what about children? I mean, if you're looking at someone that wants to be a good parent, what are some of the ways that you can prevent trauma from your kids?
Exactly. To do that, it is very important to have a regulated nervous system yourself and to do therapy on yourself. That's why, because kids, they are not, their language develops much later, and whatever experiences they are already getting, they are already overwritten on their system, on their body, and we are all a very connected system. It's not because their cognition doesn't work as much as ours, they don't feel and don't remember. They might not remember in the way we do, but their system is writing very important things for all of their future, So the first thing to do is to do therapy on yourself and make sure that your nervous system is in the correct state when you interact with these kids. And another thing is that no matter what you tell them officially, what you show up, or what you show, how you show in your actions, how you show up, or what you do physically around them, and all your, if you have any limiting beliefs, that you might not sit and announce them that, hey guys, if we in our family have this limiting belief, you might not do this, but they will show in small ways how you act with this person, how you act with this, how you act around that, and that gets copied automatically. And that's why even with women, it is very important to work on yourself before you give birth, and even during this period, for sure, to make sure that you give least possible traumas to your kids, because there are a lot of sensitive windows. So for example, up until 3 months and then up until 3 years, we literally program these kids. They don't remember maybe events, but they remember that girl who was trying to roll away from the pain in her infancy. And the truth is that if we dig deep enough in therapy, we will remember that instance, which is crazy to think about,
Yeah.
But
was it electroshock with the baby?
It wasn't something as and that's why I say it doesn't need an extreme event. It does not need a torture to be performed. It could be just infant not being responded to at the right time, not being not being or shouted at when he cries, or not being held, or maybe spanked as he was smaller, or something, like this. And I'm sure this is not normal, but these are the things that parents do, and when they are overwhelmed, when they are tired, when they didn't get sleep, when they have to get to work, when they don't have enough support, I'm sure these are the things that happen. And that's why I want to say that the small things for us, they create huge scars for that child, for that person, and their whole development and their whole life could be diverted from their authentic, true, original path as it should be following, and it would go in the completely opposite direction, like that girl who keeps moving houses, moving places,
So, one of the books that I wrote was called Identity Intelligence. So the premise behind it is that we have a core identity that is essentially our authentic best self. The problem is that as we start growing older, people start doing stuff and we react. Instead of acting intelligently, we're reacting to different situations and different people based on emotional gratifications and or in some cases to not get pain. Okay? And so because of that, we start making these various decisions that ultimately take us away from our core identity, or in your case, we call it authentic self,
yes,
right?
Yes, yes.
And so the idea here is that, first of all, understand who you are, your colored brain, how you get clarity, because, a purple brain who is constantly needing details and information, okay, is very different than, say, for example, a blue brain who is essentially intuitive processing and needs to reflect, okay? And how people treat them is going to be different, okay, based on how they need to see things. So understanding yourself, understanding how you get clarity will give you more clarity on what the trauma is compared to, say, for example, again, like I said in the beginning, someone can do the same behavior to one person, which could cause trauma, and another behavior to another person where that person thrives from it.
Exactly.
Okay. And when you also understand your primary motivators, which do change during life, okay, and different stages of your life, that is also a foundation of who you are and what you're trying to get. So sometimes if you're trying to get security, what ends up happening is you do things that prevent you from getting growth. Mm-hmm. Okay, and you want to grow, but you also have this high level of security or risk adversity, mm-hmm. which partially genetic, partially environmental, depending on where, different things. Okay, and all of this can affect your dissatisfaction in your life, or for that matter, even the potential satisfaction of where you're going. And sometimes when you finally get over your shit, then you're like finding out that, okay, a lot of the stuff I worried about was kind of silly, and now I can, just kind of, deal with it and go with it and move forward. But you have to get over that, though. You have to get over your shit.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a very interesting point that you raised, that some people from the same event, some people grow, some people get like buried literally. They can't overcome it. And there was a study done on PTSD and mm-hmm. why some people go to the war areas and they recover, and some people get completely broken and they cannot overcome that thing. And the answer is whoever had the childhood trauma before, and then the trauma that happened to them in adult age triggers that previous trauma, they cannot overcome it. And the people who didn't have the childhood trauma, the same traumatic event, it just passes through them. Like they say that all our emotions, whatever happens to us in the present, have to finish and leave the system in 90 seconds. Like whatever emotional stuff we have, it should
90 finish. Seconds.
Yeah, something like that. So if we keep something happened and then I keep thinking for 3 days about this, and did I say that right? And in 2008 and and at 2 a.m. when you're thinking in 2008 I should have responded like this to that message, So that means that there was some traumatic event.
I should have bought Bitcoin in 2017.
Something like that. Yes. So originally our emotions have to pass through us very fast, and then we just move on, and then we are like a clean vessel for today's tasks. But we become not a clean vessel, and we become, susceptible to anything, and then it triggers a lot of rumination only if there is a previous childhood trauma.
Okay. And so now we've got childhood trauma, we've got, potential parenting issues, but how about leadership? Okay, I mean, we want to be better leaders. What are some of the things that we can do to understand and help people get through traumas?
I think the first question would be who are the best leaders? I think the best leaders are people who are very unique. We all are very unique, but who removed so many traumas that they shine, and their talent shines, and it is not abstracted by anything. And I think people see this a lot. We see this a lot, this light which shines through, when the screen is not dirtied by layers of something, And I think this is very attractive, and that's why we like kids for them being uninhibited, They are so free from things as yet. They are uninhibited, and it's amazing to watch this. Same like animals, why we love them is because they are so authentic in their expression, and that sometimes is amazing to see a dog loving you, and he will break everything to get you, and he will not think, oh, what will you think about me, and will you value me enough if I show it? He doesn't even, and this uninhibited truth, it is very attractive. It is very attractive. And I think in leadership, this is super important, is like when you remove all those traumas and you discover your true talent, you work on it, and then you present it. I think it is impossible to not like such a person and to not follow such a person.
Well, there is the thought or the idea that you do not need to like a leader in order to respect them.
That's true.
Okay.
Yeah, I might not like the ideas, how to say, like I might not be aligned with the ideas, for example, of a person, but I would respect their clarity and their maybe, how to say, code of thought process,
All right. No, if somebody wanted to be a better leader, all right, what would be some of the first steps that they could go through to clear their trauma?
I think number one is to watch your triggers and to watch which situation disbalances you, and in the moment to ground yourself, to go back into the body, to feel your surroundings, and I would say to start journaling, to start writing this, to start writing the triggering situations. And if you write that for let's say maybe 2 weeks, you will start seeing effect, and you will start seeing that all of these are pretty similar, and that would lead you to some kind of pattern, and that pattern then it's easier to detangle,
Okay. So now, if you are trying to untangle all of your stuff, all right, what would be some of the first, let's say, what would be, okay, so we've got journaling, but journaling is basically what's going on now.
Yeah.
Okay, so would you be able to break it down into something like, how can someone do self-reflection for, like, what are some of the barriers to their success? Because, see, the thing is that, okay, let's just take, for example, there are some leaders, or I should say some managers, that believe that by shaming others, others will essentially want to not be shamed, and they will go ahead and do better things, okay, or achieve more or whatever. All right. But so from their perspective, they do not see that as wrong. They don't see it as a problem. They don't see it as anything that is hindering their success. They see that as a positive skill.
Yeah. And the problem, what it does is that it breaks safety within the group, So it's like, oh, that person is a leader and he is unsafe. And in general, in animal kingdom, you would not survive if your leader is an unsafe guy, because he's supposed to be like, we know.
I know, but how do you get somebody that doesn't see that they're unsafe? See, that's the thing, because their perspective is like, oh, well, by doing this, I have got this person to do this, and I've got this person to this, through inflicting fear, I have achieved this. So from their perspective, it is their success process.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do we get them to see something different? Because sometimes, there are people who just are toxic and they believe that they are right.
Yeah, it's very difficult, subconsciously. Like we say, for every shark there is a bigger shark. At one moment they will hit a wall onto someone who will, trigger the trauma that causes all this, and they would feel the stuff like karma. They would feel the stuff that they have been doing onto others. But I think to make a person conscious who is unconscious and is unwilling to do self-reflection is like no point.
But even if they want to do self-reflection, and I have encountered this, okay, there are people who you try to, you ask them questions, you talk to them, they are doing the self-reflection, but from their perspective, they are right. Okay. Now, again, you've got the whole side of character disorder and neurosis on this side, right? So yes, they are much more towards the side of character disorder because they don't see other people's perspective because they can only see their perspective. Okay. But the thing is that they do get results. Right?
Yeah, that's
and that is it. That because so from theirs is like, I am getting the results. why should I change?
Yeah, but like you could try to role reverse, saying, "Hey, I felt this. Like if this phrase was said to you, and see how they react. And did someone ever say like stuff like this? For sure, it would trigger some story in school or somewhere where someone did something similar, and that might trigger a self-reflection. But you cannot force this onto people, unfortunately, who are incapable of like going over this. You know.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So just basically put them in a box, okay, and don't let them out until you've changed.
I mean, I think like we are in an environment which is always responsive to us, and for sure someone will respond to this, and there will be a person who will be able to hold the ground there.
Okay.
You know, if not their workers who are dependent on them.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, now we're coming to an end of our time together. So, if you were to give some advice to someone, to basically not just be a better leader, but be a better human, a better parent, a better partner. Okay, what would be the 5 things that they should do right now?
Mm-hmm. First, watch your triggers, journal them. Second.
Okay, now let's just be a little more clear. Define triggers first.
Trigger is any situation that makes your reaction much more than the situation is supposed to mean. So, for example, someone pushed you and you respond with a lot of anger. So, for sure, it's not about like this person just pushing you. It triggered some tail of events from before.
Okay.
So when you see that you are reacting or thinking too much or giving too much energy to something which is not supposed to, like to another person, it might not be the same. It should be a question mark for you to think if it is a triggering event, triggering some of your past experiences.
Okay.
And if you could note them down, journal them, it's super important. If you could ground yourself and...
so that's one. Define your triggers. And now we know what triggers are and what the results are. So it doesn't have to be just anger. It can be actually just,
anything.
Going into a loop
or fear,
right. Okay.
All of this, what happens? All of this is like we have fight or flight. Animals have fight or flight response to stress. There is stress, there is fight or flight. If I am smaller than the attacker, I run away. If I am bigger than the attacker, I could attack and then run away to win myself time. But when we cannot decide, we go into the loop of dissociation and we start ruminating. So that's why whenever you start ruminating, your system is trying to decide, should I run or should I fight? And that's how we get zoned out. Okay. So this is like a stress response. So whenever this happens also, you need to know, okay, there was this stress response. It's much greater than to another person. It wouldn't be causing this. And therefore it seems that there is some problem. So,
okay, that's one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I would name 3. So like.
Okay, number 3. All right, let's go for 3.
I think this is like wise. So like number 1 is find your triggers. Write them down, see the patterns. Number 2 is take care of yourself in the present moment, because what trauma does is it removes you from the present moment, from where we are now, from how your body is feeling now. And most people who have had traumatic experience are unable to feel their body in the moment.
Really?
Yes. And yes. They are unable to ground themselves to see if this event or like earlier, it was a gut feeling that allowed us to survive as species. So if we were disconnected from that gut feeling, we would not been able to survive. So like you have to take most decisions on intuition, on very fast, immediate kind of response, because that's how animal part of us acts. So if a person is disconnected from that intuition, inner feeling of, I'm not sure, and if they don't act on what's happening in them, that's a sign of trauma. So to come back to your original settings, you need to always watch your body. Did my palms start sweating? Do I feel anxious about this? Do I feel fear about this? Do I feel anger to this person? Do I feel something inside? Something does not feel right, but I can't name it. So it's your body first responding before your cognition is even able to process what has happened. Mm-hmm. So it's very important to watch your body in general. And I would say number 3 is the most important, is to bring all the information that you have to a person, because when trauma happens in relation with someone, it's like 2 nervous systems that work in cohesion. So That's why it's actually important who you surround yourself with, because your nervous system will get synchronized with the nervous system of people around you. And that's how people who have depression, not kind of give depression to others, but if you are surrounded by people who always are depressed or always anxious, your nervous system, because we are like tribal creatures, so we copy and adjust towards who is around us, so.
Well, that's very true. And that goes back to the whole thing of choose your friends carefully, right?
Exactly.
Because
that's why it's written even in the Bible, be very careful who you are with.
Because that's a huge thing, because that, like when we deal with organizational cultures, right? There are certain people that, even if you get 90% of everybody in line and they're all excited and everything else, you can get just one or two other people that can destroy the entire thing, because they start putting doubts in people's brains and they, start kind of, giving you this weird magic shit that makes you kind of go in different directions, and eventually everything falls apart.
Yes.
Okay. So yes, the element of who is with you, who you surround yourself with, will definitely affect your success. It'll affect your potential to get over your own shit. It'll affect your emotional ability to give in a relationship.
Exactly. And that's why I also, first of all, is what you said about that leader who was unsafe. He might be doing everything fine on paper, but he creates such a feeling of unsafety for everyone that no one would be able to be at their peak when they are unsafe. No one. And another thing is why we should choose our partners very carefully, is that this person's nervous system will determine, especially for men, how the woman is around them, they should be watchful of who they choose, because this person will determine their home environment, their success level, their children's future for many generations will be dependent on who is that woman. So they should be very, very careful, not only visually assessing, but assessing internal qualities of what future will that person give them.
Well, that's why going back to the whole relationship thing, right? Okay, you will notice in some parts of your life that maybe you see this person and you think, oh my gosh, this person is like the best or the most amazing. And then your friends tell you, no, I don't think this person's right for you. But you always justify, and you always kind of, bring up all of the qualities. You just don't know them like I do, kind of thing, right? But in reality, here's what happens is that, we have this part of our brain called the reticular activating system, right? And it focuses on things that justify you being right. So you have somebody that is essentially who you want to be with. Maybe they look good. Maybe they're great in intimacy things. Okay. Maybe there's, maybe they have lots of money. Okay. But you have this thing where you have this person has got to be for me. And because you only want that relationship to work, you only see the good things, but everybody else sees everything else, that because they're not involved, right? And so therefore, you become biased without even realizing it. And then if you get married, then it's too late. Well, could be anyway. But the thing is that you have this, that listening to the people around you can also be part of this reflection. Yeah,
if you are trusting those people and respect them for real, and if they are your long-term friends who've seen you through many things, for sure, this should be done. But that's also how, because we are inauthentic, other people around us are also inauthentic. So usually what we do is my mask meet another person masks, and we talk, and then we fall in love. And then once the masks start falling, we are like, oh, I didn't subscribe for this.
Exactly, right.
And that's why it's important to present yourself, to know yourself, because most people also, when even they write stuff on dating app, they really think that this is what they want. But once they have to prove it, or once they have to live it, it might not be what they have,
signed up for.
And then they realize and it's too late. This kind of stuff. So it's important for us to know ourselves, and it's important to present ourselves authentically, and it's important to watch that another person not only talks the talk, but walks the walk,
My mom once told me that, when I go out with a girl, when I was dating, that I should watch how she treats the waiter or waitress, because eventually that's how she's going to treat me.
Okay.
And that was some really great advice, I thought.
Yeah, moms are always right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So coming back to our thing, what I would advise is, number one, watch your triggers journal. Number two, watch your body and its response. First of all, what's the normal base state and its response to any environment or any person or any interaction, and that would give you a lot of clues. But number three is, whatever information you gather, you must bring to therapy and discuss it with someone, and do trauma work with the person who could stabilize your nervous system. So when the trauma happens, it is because our nervous system was not held during a stressful event, which might not be, like you said, electroshock to a baby, but it might be that the baby was not responded to his cry. And for the small newborn child, it is
it's a bigger thing.
It is a bigger thing. It is the electroshock level of a thing, and that would stay with them through all the life, because this is like a formative window. So, and once you do this reparenting, you return back to those situations, and and another person's nervous system is healing you in the moment, because that was this connection is what you were lacking in the moment. And that's why sometimes people come and they're very intellectual, which is also a defense mechanism, like rationalization, etc. And some people might know even more psychology and where everything came from and than you, but the truth is their experiential knowledge didn't reach that stage where they could help themselves, because they need another person to truly be a safe person for them and to hold them in that moment of disconnection and to fix the rupture,
Okay. All right. Brilliant. Okay. Well, there you have it. Okay. And, if you need to contact Tanya, you need to contact me. All of the information, links, etc. is down below. See you.
Thank you.